Hi, Graham Vincent, Violinmaker and occasional viola maker, so it seems. Yeah, so this is the finished viola, it's done. I did a video a while back about violin varnishes, and that one very much went down the theoretical sort of line, me talking about all the different approaches and advantages or disadvantages as I saw them, and just in general terms how to do a finish. And I like to think that was useful, but this particular video is going to be a completely different approach. It's not going to explore all the different ways of doing something. I'm literally just going to follow this one instrument from being in the white and several days later being finished. So this is a really fast and easy approach to finishing a violin or viola with spirit-based finishes. So here we go. Right, I know this looks like some weird cooking program. It's not. It's me. I'm preparing the sealer for the viola, and as promised, I'm going to do it using egg albumin. I mean, I mentioned I had been thinking originally of using potassium silicate, water glass, I think it's called, but because I had been alerted to the fact that it does actually sort of discolour some woods, I tested it on a bit of the pear wood, and it made it go bright green. So that's definitely a no-go. So, right. What we're doing is we're separating the egg whites from the egg yolks in the traditional cooking style. Dun, dun, dun. Almost looks like I know what I'm doing. This is the first time I would have used egg albumin sealer on a violin for a very long time, actually. I think I've done it 2 or 3 times. And then basically you give it a sort of a whisk to break up the big globby jelly-like structure. It starts to look like you're making meringue, actually. And then you stick that in the fridge. What you're interested in is the clear liquid that settles at the bottom. That's the first simple step. Right, got the viola out of the UV cabinet. So that real harsh white colour's starting to go. The varnish will give it some additional colour. The UV has increasing difficulty penetrating the varnish, so although I will be putting it back in the UV cabinet as we progress. Oh, a plane going over. Even though I'll be putting this back in the UV cabinet as the varnishing progresses, the effect, as I say, will be kind of slowed down a little bit. But anyway, it's got a nice sort of nutty, biscuity sort of colour. It's feeling lovely and resonant. One thing that's always amusing to me at this point is you can sort of judge how well an instrument's going to sound fairly accurately by when you tap the scroll, kind of where you hear that sound. And even if my head's here, all of that is coming from there. It keeps me amused anyway. Right, so this is the egg that's kind of separated now. I'm going to try and decant some of the liquid into this little tin. Should be enough to do the whole thing. We'll find out in a while, won't we? So working pretty much as if I was varnishing. Right, let's mix up the polish. So this is, as far as I understand it, this is a brush-on type of French polish. So it's a shellac polish, SPB polish, S002 by Jenkins. So. Let's put a little bit in here. I'm aiming to mix up enough for the entire job. So we'll see if that works out later on. And I've done similar things to this, but this is a first with this exact stuff. I bought 3 different types of leather finish, and I've got to decide what I'm going to use. I've got a light brown, I've got a, what have I got? What's this one? Honey. Honey sounds promising, doesn't it? I'm thinking a bit of honey and a bit of light brown. I got yellow as well, but I don't think I'm going to use the yellow. So I'm going to put a couple of drops of each of these into that, have a look and decide if that's enough. If this sounds like I don't know what I'm doing, as I say, it's the first time I've used these particular ingredients. That's 5 drops of the light brown. Five of the honey. First question is, how well does it dissolve or disperse in the shellac? Very well by the look of it. Good. I'm thinking another 5 drops of each, and then we'll use that for the first coat. I will do a little test on something else first, don't you worry. Six, that was. That's fine. That looks lovely, if maybe a little bit subtle. But I'm only going to put thin coats on, so it'll build as it goes. So let's use that. Good. This is the albumin sealer. It's been in the UV chamber for about an hour. I've just started with P800 just to flatten it off a little bit, just to denib it. That's all I'm going to do. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually add some pumice. So this is 4F pumice that I'm adding in the hope that some of it will remain lodged in any imperfections around the purpling and what have you. I think I was a bit overly generous with that, wasn't I? Let's put some on this cloth, then I won't lose it all. Okay.
Right, I'm ready. So, we're going to be using the French polish mixed with the leather dye. It's too hot outside, so the spirit varnish will go off almost as soon as it touches the surface out there. So I'm not going to do it outside. Right, it's had 3 coats so far in exactly the same way. I'm just going to just denib it again using pumice and a cloth. I think I'm going to, I've been very happy, I've been happy with the colour build so far. I think I'm actually now going to add just a little bit more of the brown. So what we've had so far, I think it was 10 drops of brown, wasn't it? So I think I'm going to double that. So I'm going to add another 10 drops of the brown. Yeah, so coming on nicely. Back into the UV box. Right, this is where I should be working on this bit of lino. So yeah, I'm doing what I refer to as the makeup sort of stage now. So I've done 5 coats of the varnish as I showed you, and now this isn't the way I normally do this. Because I am doing this with a spirit varnish, and I don't normally do that. I'm not using oil colours. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm using acrylics. The ones I seem to be using are Winsor Newton Payne's Grey, Golden Open Transparent Oxide Brown, and Winsor Newton Gallery Acrylic Raw Umber. Those seem to be the ones that I'm gravitating towards. And it's a question of putting it on and taking it off and just carrying on until you're happy with it, really. What you're trying to do is just add a bit of the dirt and discoloration. This isn't distressing. I'm not putting any dents or cracks or anything in this. I'm kind of doing the same thing that women do with blusher and highlights and things like that. And that is, I'm kind of accentuating bits and pieces of it. Does that make sense? So, you know, I want and I don't want it to be too heavy and too obvious. And I think at the moment it is a bit on the heavy and obvious side. But the thing about this is you can reverse it as you go quite easily until it's sealed in with the next coat of varnish, because there will be one more coat of varnish after this. Don't know if you can see this or not. So you put a bit in there, see what it looks like, take it out, put a bit more in, change your mind, change it. And this is where it's useful to have spent a lot of time looking at pictures of old violins, handling old violins. You know, if you haven't got a chance to hold, you know, and play an old violin or whatever, the photographs are every bit as useful, well, very useful. You know, it's not quite the same as having the real thing in your hands, obviously, but I might just check what the camera can and can't see from there and move it a bit if necessary. So, you know, experiment, don't be too precious. Worst case scenario, you'll have to start again. It's not the end of the world, you know, so don't worry about it. Enjoy yourself. You can almost slap it on like you're polishing a shoe, you know. Now this is where, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but this is where the fact that I haven't got rid of all of the tool marks starts to pay dividends, because those pick up some of this colour and they pick it up in a way that looks like age. It looks like dirt and varnish has got trapped in the imperfections in the build. And if I was doing this on a completely perfectly finished, like if I just stripped a modern factory violin and I was doing this to it, it would not work in the same way. So this works for me because of the way I work, and you know, it may well work for you, it may well not work for you. You see, I've also put a little bit of colour where the feet of the bridge would go to make it look like there's been a lot of wear there. As I say, I'm not doing any chipping or any denting. There's no real distressing going on here. This is just a bit of colour to that's it without. God. That's it with. It absolutely makes the shape of the scroll pop. Next day, it's all looking good. I'm just rubbing the neck down, get rid of most of the finish on it, and I'm then going to get in there with some walnut oil, which I might swap over to using a little bit of alcohol, just to what? No, I'm getting there. I won't use alcohol, I'll just carry on like this. So I've given it one more coat of clear this morning. I put some tung oil on the neck. Cut that back, put some tung oil on the neck, so it's lovely and smooth feeling there. That'll get one or two more coats. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the inside of the peg box to match. It's something I have done at various stages in the past, and depending on the instrument I'm making, it's still something I really like the look of. But the violin that this particular client has got an ultramarine blue inside there, so that's what I'm going to do on this one to match that. This finish dries so quickly, I can quite happily stand it on the corners, on the bouts like that, as long as I'm not rubbing it about whilst I get other things ready. So let's just get a little bit of, and again I'm using acrylic on this occasion. Time for another coat of varnish. So I'm just going to denib it again. Right, let's do a bit of French polishing. I'm not sure how much I'm going to do. I say that because I've kind of bodied up the thing already using the spirit varnish. So anyway, here we go. So I'm just using it's a white French polish. First time I'm actually going to make sure there's quite a bit on the rubber. This is called a rubber, obviously, because you rub with it, not because it's made of rubber. I use olive oil. You don't want much. Sometimes it's best just to put it in your hand and just do that with it. But you get a bit messy that way. Here we go. I think I'll start on the back. Yeah, that is very wet. That's too wet. So let's squeeze some of that out. That's distributed a bit more evenly, I think. I'm actually sort of going over the whole body quickly, as much as anything, to get rid of some of the French polish in here, because you don't want to be going over and over the same spot with masses of French polish, because it will start to eat into the finish below too quickly. So, next, powdered rotten stone. This serves a couple of purposes really. It takes that toffee apple kind of sheen off everything, but it also sort of adds another kind of dimension, another type of dirt, another dust effectively. So it's really good for that. Because although you try to get it all back off again, you won't. Well, I finished the viola, so here it is. I don't play the viola, so my poor fiddle style on the viola.
yeah, so I hope that was useful. Look after yourselves. Cheers, folks.